All right, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to teach you a fourth way to find the roots, the x-intercepts, the zeros, or the solutions of a quadratic equation. This method is called the square root method. All right. So look at this. It's at the top of your paper. It's got a little outline around it. Everybody see that? All right, so now what I want you to do is I want you to write, you can only use the square root method when there is no bx term, or just no x term, okay? There cannot be that middle term. You can have an A and you can have a C, but you cannot have a B, all right? Which means also there's no x. Write that down, please. There is no bx term. All right, so now let's look at this problem. X squared minus 49 equals 0. Now you might see right away that that is a difference of squares, but then again you might not. So let's just say you don't notice that it is a difference of squares, because the square root method can be used on any kind of problem that does not have a x term or a b term, okay? So here we go. So I'm going to, first thing I'm going to do is isolate my variable. In this case, it's an x squared. And so by doing that, I'm going to add 49 to both sides. All right? When I get that, I get x squared equal 49. And then all I have to do is take the square root of both sides. All right, so I'm going to take the square root of x squared, and I'm going to take the square root of 49. Well, when I take the square root of x squared, that's going to give me x. And when I take the square root of 49, remember that I can take 7 times 7, but I can also do negative 7 times negative 7. So my roots for this equation are going to be positive 7 and negative 7. All right, now let's look at this problem. Okay, this is problem 3 on your sheet. And if you look at this, it looks good. But remember when we were doing difference of squares, it had to be subtraction. And this is not subtraction. So I don't notice, and I'm going to isolate my x squared. Well, when I do that, I'm subtracting 25 from both sides, right? So go ahead and write that down. Ladies and gentlemen, what two numbers multiply to give me negative 25? What two numbers times itself multiply to give me negative 25? Well, there isn't any, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And I have to have a negative number and a positive number to get a negative answer. So therefore, there's no number times itself that equals a negative 25. So I have no real solution. So if you would write that down for number 3, make sure that you write yourself a note. There is no number times itself that equals a negative. So if you get that negative, x squared equaling a negative, there is no real solution and you're done with your work. That's it. Okay, so let's now look at number 7. Number 7, this time my 54 is on one side of the variable and my x squared is on the other side, or not the variable, of the equal sign, and my x squared is on the left side of the equal sign, but my x squared has a 6 attached to it by multiplication. So that means I'm going to have to isolate my x squared. Well, how do I do that? If that was just an x, what would I do? Well, I would divide both sides by 6. All right, so I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And when I do 6x squared divided by 6, I get x squared. And 54 divided by 6 happens to be 9. So now what I want you to do is I want you to complete this problem for me, okay? So pause the video, complete the problem before moving on, and then restart the video again, and we're going to do a couple more. All right, so now I want you to look at number 16. So number 16, I have a 9x squared minus 16x equals 0. Okay, well now you can notice that's a difference of squares. But let's say you don't notice that it's a difference of squares. So I can go ahead and I can add 16 to both sides. And when I do that, I end up getting 9x squared equals 16. All right, now what happens when I divide both sides by 9? All right, and I'm going to get x squared equaling 16/9. Oh dear. Well, I can continue and I can do the square root of both sides of the equal sign. So I'm going to have here the square root of x squared and the square root of 16/9. Well, that means I'm going to take the square root of 16 and the square root of 9. I like to write it like this. I don't like to write it as 1. I could, but I like to write it like this because it lets me know that I'm taking the square root of 16 and I'm taking the square root of 9. All right, so now I'm going to do this. I am going to take the square root of x squared, and that's x, and the square root of 16, and that's 4, but it's positive negative 4, and the square root of 9 is 3. So my answer for this one is positive negative 4/3. All right, I have one more problem that I want to share with you today, and that is problem number 20. All right, so I've been saying, oh, look, these are difference of squares. This one is not a difference of squares, but I can still go ahead and I can use the square root method because there's no b, there's no x term, okay? So I'm going to, just like before, I'm going to add 41 to both sides, and I'm going to get x equal 41. Okay, so again, what do I do here? Well, I know 41 is not a perfect square, and so all I can do is take the square root of both sides, and then I can use the calculator to take the square root and find the answer. So right now, would you go ahead and take the square root of 41? All right, when you do that, you should get a number, a bigger number, okay? If the directions don't say, always round to the nearest hundredth. So again, if the directions do not say, always round to the nearest hundredth. All right? And when you do that, you should have gotten x equals, don't forget, it's positive negative 6.40. All right, that's all for today. Make sure you finished up to those few problems that I had you do. I think that was number, 7? All right. Make sure you've written extra words down, like it's okay to use your calculator and also to round to the nearest hundredth if the directions do not say. All right, until next time.